Am I the a-hole for breaking up with and kicking my girlfriend out because she went to an after party without me? I, 24 male, and my girlfriend, 25 female, Anne, began dating in college. Last week, Anne invited me to her coworker's, Joe, party. I had heard a lot about him in the past, and he and she really seemed to have a lot in common, especially with their taste in music. Apparently, he was an amateur musician with a fairly successful YouTube channel. Joe initially invited only Anne, but when she asked him if I could tag along, he said it was fine. The party was on Saturday evening. It was a fun party with about 30 people, held at a restaurant Joe had rented out. Towards the end, though, I wandered into Anne's little discussion group, and I immediately got the feeling that nobody really wanted me there. Most of all, Anne. It was her, Joe, and a few other people. Thinking that I was just imagining things, I hung around and listened to Joe basically boast about himself the whole time. A little while later, I wandered off to get myself a drink and chat with a few other people. Eventually, the time to leave came around, and I went to find Anne again. Joe approached me at that point and said that he was having an after party over at his house. I was going to refuse, but then he said, "Sorry man, but only Anne is invited," while clapping me on the shoulder. I first told him not to touch me and then said she's not going. He informed me that she had already accepted the invitation. I texted Anne immediately to ask where she was. She responded, "Sorry, on the way to Joe's place. I'll see you tomorrow. Love you." I asked if she knew I wasn't invited, and she then left me on red. Texts after that were all ignored. That's fishy. That's sus. Listen, I am not big about like controlling your partner. Part of being in a relationship is like giving your trust to that person. That being said, there needs to be communication. There needs to be discussion around uncomfortable things. This is unacceptable to me. Leaving them on red and ignoring their texts when they know that they're uncomfortable about all this. I guess the only thing that OP hasn't mentioned is if OP's expressed discomfort with the relationship between Joe and Anne. Even then, though, I don't think it's okay for Anne to just completely ignore OP. I drove home furious. I stayed up all night, and finally Anne walked in the door at 5:42 a.m. I know because I was by the window watching. I recognized the car as Joe's and the driver as Joe. Nobody else was in the car. Anne waved to him cutely and laughed at something he said. Anne came inside and acted surprised to see me still up. At that point, I flatly told her that we were done and she had the rest of the day to move out. Anne was at first confused with me, and then I told her that she can just move in with Joe. She rolled her eyes and said nothing happened. She gave me this spiel about my insecurities and imagination. I said it didn't matter. After this back and forth arguing, Anne finally relented and sarcastically thanked me for wasting the best years of her life. Anne finally moved out yesterday and it was pretty dramatic. She said that she loved me and that I was throwing away everything over a party. Did I do her wrong here? I feel like I'm being gaslighted. I don't think he's the a-hole for being mad about it, but I think he might be a little bit in the wrong for completely cutting off the relationship, at least from what I've gotten from this post. It seems like there hasn't been enough conversation around the relationship between Joe and Anne, and maybe too the way that Joe interacts with OP. Probably the biggest disrespect out of this. Inviting a close friend, but not their partner, and then going up to them and almost being like a douchebag about it. Like, "Oh, hey man, you're not invited, but your girlfriend is." Like, it's just over the top. Like, you didn't need to do all that, bro. And Anne being okay with her partner not being invited to something is a big red flag in my mind. If you have a partner, you guys should be side by side. You guys should be in it together for every single thing that you do. I think there's a lot of relationship work here, but I don't really think it's break up with her worthy. If you found out that she did in fact cheat on you, sure, I would say go through with the breakup. It seems a little too premature, pull the trigger on it. Yeah, I would absolutely not be going if my boyfriend wasn't invited. Also, that's just like disrespectful. It's one thing if it's like, "Oh, hey, a group of girls are gonna go do a girl thing and the boyfriends aren't invited." That's different than like, "Okay, we're gonna go to somebody's house and like everyone's invited except for this person's significant other." That's weird.